The news begins in West Africa, Nigeria, where a fire incident has been reported at a popular section of the Lagos Island Idumota Market today. The fire was due to a generator explosion. One of the gutted buildings caved in as firemen battled to extinguish the inferno. No life was reported lost in the incident, but goods worth millions of naira were reportedly destroyed.
So far, so good. About 4 buildings have gone down from the intensity of the fire. In the last 5 minutes, 2 have gone down. Earlier it was 2, but in the last 5 minutes, 2 have gone down. The third one was where the fire started from. It was alleged that somebody, a printer, simply called Uche, was trying to refuel his generator while the generator was on. From there, it caught fire. What happened between that time when the fire started and the fire crossing the road to affect other buildings is what we don't know yet. But it's a very, very challenging task, but we're overcoming it now. About more than 14, we can't ascertain until the whole fire has gone down, but as at now, more than 14 have been affected.
And now to politics. The minority leaders of the House of Representatives, drawn from all opposition parties, have disowned 60 lawmakers who on Monday called for resignation of the People's Democratic Party's acting national chairman, Umar Damagum, for alleged anti-party activities. Recall that 60 parliamentarians under the auspices of the coalition of opposition lawmakers on Monday in Abuja threatened to quit the PDP if Damagum does not leave the office to pave the way for the appointment of a new acting chairman from the North Central, the zone of the suspended national chairman of the party, Senator Iochia Ayu. Reacting via a statement issued and co-signed on Tuesday by the minority leader and leader of the caucus, the lawmakers described the Ikenga Ugo Chinyere-led coalition as a body unknown to the parliament. As the Ramadan season is winding up, Muslims across the world are getting geared for the final day and all that comes with it. Celebrating Eid al-Fitr is important to note the significance it carries. Eid al-Fitr, often referred simply to as Eid, is one of the most significant festivals in Islam. It falls on the first day of Shawwal, the 10th month of the Islamic calendar, the month following Ramadan, and marks the end of the month-long period of fasting, prayer, reflection, and community. In the meantime, a Sokoto Muslim cleric, Sheikh Musa Lokwal, on Tuesday led his followers to observe Eid prayers. The Sultan of Sokoto, Saad Abubakar, had on Monday declared Wednesday as the day for Eid al-Fitr. The Sultan, who is the President of General of Nigeria's Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, said the decision followed the reports of national moon sighting committees across the country, which confirmed the non-sighting of the new moon. However, Lokwal flouted the Sultan's directive on a moon sighting as he conducted prayers at his Jumat mosque around 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Justifying the action, Lokwal said the moon of Shawwal was sighted in neighboring Niger Republic on Monday. And to speak more on the festival, I'm joined live by my guests. Well, we'll try to connect with that subsequently. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. And now let's connect with our correspondent who is live in the Idumota Market, where a fire incident initially reported to have gutted a section of the market, and following that was a building that caved in, and we covered that live here on News Central TV. Adesewa Odusoga, if you can hear me, good afternoon. Glad to connect with you again.
Hi, Adebola. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, just bring us up to speed with the position of things. Were the firefighters eventually able to put out the fire? We saw live how a building caved in.
Yes, it's been almost 9 hours since this fire started, and for a fact, it looks like mission impossible for the fire rescue service, because for every time a tanker comes to quench the fire erupts from another place. Take a look at what is going on behind me. This particular spot has been going up in flames for the last couple of hours, at least since we got here. And it appears that this is not going to go off anytime soon. It might take longer than usual to put out the fire. inside, trying to put out the fire in all of other buildings down the street. Recall that I told you that it's the entire street that has been gutted up. And this other stretch of the street, we still have activities, ongoing to put out the fire. Well, just a minute after I came live earlier in the afternoon, this particular building you mentioned collapsed down to the ground, and then we saw that the safety officials had to come in to force the other half of the building down. And then we also saw that at the other end there, they also forced the building. I'm not sure if you can see clearly because everywhere is covered up in flames, but a building in the middle of that thick black smoke was also forcefully brought to the officials because the fire would just go out. The buildings keep collapsing, the fire keeps coming up on and on again, and it's almost mission impossible for them. The fire responders are still here, all security officials, as far as I know, in Lagos State are still here trying to put out the fire. And we have so many traders. It's a whole lot of emotional situation here. You see different people coming out from different angles, trying to go even as far as close to the fire just to see the remains of what used to be their means of livelihoods. Millions, billions of naira have burnt out completely in this fire. Like what I know now, about 14 buildings in total were affected by the fire. Now let me show you some of the traders who are still trying to salvage the remains of their goods. You can see the activities going on there. So those are some traders trying to save what remains of their warehouse. This looks like something of tailoring materials, and they are trying to, as much as possible, rescue what they can, get out from the building. Now, these people are actually trying to pick goods from this building here, the remaining half of the building. So there are some men at the other end. If you can see them, they are coming out from this building. Then they are connecting to this other building beside it and trying to rescue their goods. And this is one of the situations, I think, to a very large extent, that the buildings are so closely connected is an advantage at this point in time, because who knows how would they have been able to, rescue the remains of their goods. So that is what we have now. We still have onlookers, we still have victims still here wailing and checking out the remains of what used to be their goods, and of course the safety measures are still on here, and the fire responders are still trying to put out the fire. Adebola.
I know you raised concerns when we spoke earlier regarding some other buildings likely to give way, but from what you can see right now, how many buildings would you say are at risk of being gutted in fire as a result of proximity to other buildings?
Okay, at this particular street, this is actually Dosumu Street. A total of, according to I'm quoting the officials now, the emergency management agencies, approximately 10 to 14 buildings are affected on this street. Now, unfortunately, about 4 buildings connected to one of the houses on the street. About 4 buildings are now completely in flames. Completely gutted by the fire, and one of it has been forcefully brought down, by the For example, if you can see the particular building right next to the one that I'm pointing out currently, you can see the fire up there. The fire servicemen have tried continually to put out that particular fire, but it just won't go up. They are trying to see what exactly is, fueling this particular fire. There are indications that it could be that there's a gas cylinder or something of sort inside the buildings, and then the only options that are available is to bring down the building, especially those that have shown indications that it's completely weak and will likely go down soon. From what we can see now, it looks like the entire street is likely to become a history, and that it used to house buildings, residential apartments, commercial stores, because I don't know, it can never be the same again. This particular street can never remain what it used to be. The popular Dosumu Street on Idumota, Lagos is totally, it's totally being wiped off by nothing like I've ever seen before.
Can you hear me? Yes, I know you spoke earlier on to an official of the National Emergency Management Agency, and then he spoke about this incident of fire. But following a building caving in, has any authority come out to address the situation?
So if I can hear you clearly, I think what you're asking is the authorities that are on ground. Yes, so we have NEMA, that's the National Emergency Management Agency, and we have been briefed live. Also the men of the Nigerian Army. We have the LNSC, we have the Nigerian Police Force, and then we have the tax force as well. All of them are on ground to respond to the magnitude. This is not one of those small governments. And we also spoke with the House of Representatives. The lawmaker representing this particular constituency. She was totally, heartbroken, and she briefed us earlier, and then looking at how they can introduce safety measures going forward. One of which is introducing hydrants into the markets and also training the market women. Because this fire started just because someone who is probably inexperienced on how to, coordinate himself and manage the situation caused this, magnitude of fire. Like I said earlier, this used to be a penthouse, and then there's a man who went up there at the penthouse. It used to be like a 3 or 4 story building. A man went up in the penthouse. He was trying to fuel his generator, and then suddenly there was a spark. Because he couldn't control the situation, he threw the generator set up down the street, and then there was a wave of breeze at the point in time, and then unfortunately there was a fire, and then the fire transferred down to the other buildings at the other end of the street, and before you know it, an entire street is down. So one of the key things that they are introducing to the market women is trainings on safety measures and precautions, and then the availability of hydrants in order to respond quickly to incidents.
Our correspondent right there live in Idumota Market reporting the fire incident as well as a building that caved in live as we reported here on News Central TV. We'll try to connect with her and bring you more on this developing story. And to talk about the Eid al-Fitr, I'm joined live by my guest, an Islamic scholar and Director of Media, Public Relations and Protocols Unit Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abdurrahman Balogun. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yes, I can hear you now. If you could share with us, what do you think is the importance of Eid al-Fitr celebration?
Well, thank you very much for having me. There are only 2 Eids in Islam. One is Eid al-Fitr, the second one is Eid al-Adha. The first one is the one we're having tomorrow, is the one we normally celebrate after 30 or 29 days of fasting. While the second one is the one we do, we call a big salah, where we slaughter ram. That is during the 12th calendar year of Islam. The Ramadan is the 9th calendar year. So Eid al-Fitr is the one we use to commemorate or celebrate the end of fasting, and it is done on the first day of Shawwal. That is the first day of a 10th month in Islamic calendar year. The significance is just much. One is to thank Almighty Allah for seeing us through the 29 or 30 days of fasting. 2 is to also express our hope and aspiration in Allah for keeping us for the month of Ramadan, and is to also show our gratitude to Him for answering our dua. The month of Ramadan has been the month of prayer, the month of supplication, the month of devotion, and it's like a retreat that will lead us to the rest of how we are going to spend the rest 11 months. So that 1 month is like a retreat to all Muslims, for us to reflect, for us to see this is the way you have to live your life. You see, during this month, you see Muslim fearing Allah, you see Muslim behaving well, you see Muslim, all the things that we have abandoned during that month. That is the same way we have to live our life even after the fasting. So the significance is, the list is long, and we'll continue to pray for the best.
Now, aside the significance of this celebration, what would be your key message to Muslims?
Well, my key message to Muslims is that we are fasted, and it's like you have gone on a training. Like I said, it's like a retreat. You fasted, you've gone on a training, and you have to implement. You have to implement what you have learned during that month of fasting. And what is it that we have learned? We have learned perseverance, we have learned patience, we have learned devotion, we have learned art of behavior. You see people talking to you and you say, oh, I'm fasting. That means you will not say vain things, you will not talk badly to people, you do charity, you give alms to the poor, to the less privileged in the society, you do good to others, and you say good things to people. You behave in a very normal way. That is the way Islam teaches us, because Islam is a religion of peace. So my message to Muslims after the fasting from tomorrow is that the message, the lesson learned during that month, that 1 month, the perseverance, the patience, the fear of Allah, the charity, all other acts of the increase in faith that we have learned, we have to continue. You can see that those of us, people who are, Islam forbids you taking alcohol. If you have not taken alcohol for the last 1 month, you have not died. You have even lived earlier than now, because it's good for your health. So those things, leave it even after Ramadan. You have not done any act of fornication, any act of bribery, any act of kidnapping, any of these evil acts during Ramadan.
All right, thank you so much. This is where we have to wrap up. Thank you so much for your insight on the news. Abdurrahman Balogun, thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And now to health matters. The World Health Organization, WHO, introduces SARA, a cutting-edge digital health promoter driven by generative AI. SARA engages users round the clock, offering insights on various health topics and empowering individuals to make informed decisions about their well-being. While hailed as a significant advancement, concerns persist about the potential risks of AI in healthcare, which includes ethical concerns, equitable access, privacy, safety and accuracy, and data protection, and its impact on human interaction. WHO emphasizes the need for ongoing research and ethical considerations to ensure AI complements rather than replaces human involvement in healthcare delivery. And to dissect this, I'm joined by Adebola to give more insight on how AI solutions impact the healthcare sector. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. It's good to be on the show.
Now, people get apprehensive whenever AI is mentioned, in healthcare. Can you give us an insight into the role of AI in healthcare delivery? What are the pros or cons?
Currently, the movement of technology from what we used to know as early aspects of digital innovation, one thing we've seen is the migration to language models or generative AI, similar to smart. But one key aspect that healthcare is really leveraging on with AI is around predictive analytics, personalized medicine, where you could basically bring different large data sets and overlay those data sets to be able to understand trends, patterns, and those trends, patterns actually allow for better planning, better patient-centered care, and better processes within the entire healthcare value chain. Now you basically have solutions that are supported by AI, from telemedicine to remote solutions, reminder messaging that is triggered based off of specific parameters and algorithms that are preset to help better patient care. You've also have, aspects of things like health insurance, where you definitely are able to then decipher things like, fraud detection, fraud prevention, and also actually be able to do better targeted interventions and programming for healthcare. So there is a broad base in terms of the application of AI, but more particularly around preventive care, where there is a sort of gap in terms of the patient to medical practitioner ratio, particularly on the continent. So one key thing that AI, through different digital innovations, is enabling is the fact that you can then get access to quicker, faster, better information. AI is also supporting, more accurate diagnosis, which essentially is looking to then support fundamentally better healthcare outcomes. So there is that part of, that aspect of AI. However, just like you rightly mentioned, there's that apprehension around data privacy, data security. There are aspects of data bias or bias within the algorithm. And all of these concerns are things that technology have fundamentally been established around. And for instance, the issue of bias today around AI is something that is being looked to. On the continent today, you don't have so many people that understand the capability in terms of being able to program or really train or develop and create AI models. So essentially, what we're doing is we're using models that have already been developed by the West and adopting them into our system, and those are already pre-trained and those algorithms are already pre-configured. So there's some subtle bias. So when you begin to talk about equity, just like every aspect of development and society, there's that critical need for us on the continent to begin to really say, how do we then begin to develop our own, language learning models that is peculiar for our context, to begin to minimize the bias. And all of those conversations around privacy really talks about data trust and data theft. So those are the key things on both the plus side for AI in terms of the value it brings to healthcare, because it then makes healthcare at your fingertips, more information, better access, also better equity, and but on the other side, there's the issue about data privacy, data theft, and the algorithm bias.
Well, I know you've spoken about the advantages when it comes to generative AI and also the downsides, the gray areas which should be improved upon. But when it comes to accessibility, what efforts are being made to ensure all segments of Nigerian, society, have access to these interesting initiative AI, generative AI?
Interestingly, AI is leveraging previously existing solutions. So today you have almost between a 70 to 80%, if not more, penetration of mobile phones in country and on the continent as well. So today, things like SMS is still one of the largest communication channels between people. So on the back end of it, AI, just think of AI as an interactive engine on the back end that can actually communicate via every channel. So it then means that, if your regular SMS or USSD is connected to an AI platform and an algorithm to be able to communicate, say, for instance, a health prevention program is put on that, it then creates that interchange where you can educate and give better access to information to patients and the populace. Today, WhatsApp, that is absolutely very intuitive, and other social media platforms are able to also connect to AI, and you can use those platforms or channels for actually disseminating information or creating engagement or even gathering data fundamentally, to be able to use that data to be able to understand behavioral patterns with respect to how patients receive care, how care is given, how they demand care, and even things like patient satisfaction survey for services that are delivered within the healthcare space. So in that regard, fundamentally, there is that process already in terms of a framework for equity. While we may say there is, that population that is already on the internet, whether via WhatsApp or other channels, maybe like the USSD or SMS, there are those that are still off the internet that actually access care through proxies. So, for instance, I would go to a patent medicine vendor. I would go to a nearest PAT around me. Now, if the PAT or the patent medicine vendor is already powered by some AI infrastructure, whether for appointment booking, reminder messaging, or an AI-powered EMR, electronic medical record that has clinical decision support in it, it then means that even despite I from myself, I can connect to the healthcare system that is powered by AI. So that's also another hybrid model that can actually elicit some level of equity in terms of access to better quality data.
Thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Adebola Oshuni, a global development and digital human expert. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
And now to health matters. The University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital in Nigeria's northeast is one of Nigeria's leading public healthcare facilities, providing medical services to countless individuals, particularly those recovering from insurgency. Reports show that persistent electricity power problems resulting in dire consequences, as alleged by families of patients. Our correspondent Umaru Kirawa has been following the situation and now reports.
Mosquitoes being killed in an incubator where prematurely born infants are managed at the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital. The ward is in total darkness and all equipment that require electricity to function are powered down. The father of a deceased infant had spoken, claiming that the hospital's power problems led to the death of his child and others. He requested anonymity and expressed his frustration with the lack of adequate services at the hospital while calling for urgent improvement.
My son was having pneumonia. He was on oxygen. Immediately they took lights, no backup. After some minutes, the child just died. I'm not the only one. It's 7, there are 7.
The increase in the bed fee at the hospital as well as other medical services is seen by many residents as insensitive in a region where people are recovering from the traumatic experience of insurgency.
They have even increased everything in the hospital. The bed, the oxygen, the drugs, everything. Even before you see a doctor, you have to give 1,500.
In search of a clearer understanding of the situation, I went to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital. For a fact, the teaching hospital is battling with power problem, which leaves it in trail, pain and losses.
We normally have solar during the day, which maybe lasts about 5 p.m. or so. Then on the generator, which lasts throughout the night. But sometimes in the night, we might have some few hours without electricity.
I was at the oxygen room with 3 oxygen production machines, the special care baby unit, as well as the Child Institute, among others, where I interacted with some people.
With power failure, we are facing different challenges, but we thank God that at the point we do have some power supply.
The babies in question died in the emergency pediatric unit, the center where we are. That emergency we just left. And they came in a very bad shape. And before the doctors could resuscitate them, some came gasping. When we say gasping, means the last part of life. And therefore, about 2 of them died.
To be very categorical, there is nothing like babies dying at UMTH as a result of lack of electricity.
Despite efforts with the provision of solar-powered energy sources to meet the needs of critical areas in the hospital, the challenge has persisted.
So it's mainly the power challenge that we have than the number of patients. But we have manpower, having a lot of consultants.
We cannot say categorically at this situation that we can provide 24-hour electricity at UMTH. We do not have the capacity. I will call on the government to see how to assist hospitals, especially with this new tariff.
The budgetary allocation for the hospital for the year 2023 shows that about 242 million naira was allocated and approved for overhead cost. However, such amount is a far cry from the financial needs of the hospital.
The bed fee that we increased was 50% from 2,000 to 3,000 for adults. That was last year, August, and from 1,000 to 1,500 for pediatrics patients.
The power problem in this facility requires other forms of intervention apart from government bureaucratic process. For the sake of the vulnerable patients and to check the possible loss of lives due to the present situation, quick fix solutions are needed, which may come through philanthropic gestures. On the long run, it is obvious that no segment of the nation can wait any longer for that sincerely serious effort to make power available and affordable for citizens. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umuri Kirawa.
Nigeria's educationists have emphasized the importance of children learning in their mother tongue as a major way to profile solution to the country's learning crisis. Their views are in alignment with the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, which said foundational learning skills can be used to correct the trend. Our correspondent, Omolola Ololade, has details.
Reading and numeracy skills are two of the most fundamental skills that every child needs to learn in their early years of education. Unfortunately, many children across the world struggle with these skills, which can hinder their academic and professional growth in the future. A survey conducted in 2020 by the Nigeria Education Data Survey reported that only 66.8% of children aged 12 to 14 could read at least one of 3 words, and only 67.3% of children of the same age group could add single-digit sums. The situation is similarly alarming in Nigeria, with many young learners unable to read, write and perform basic numeracy activities, a problem that has worsened due to government inability to invest in basic education and foundational learning, according to experts.
Our government especially has not invested in the early years because your brain develops most rapidly in the early years, the 1 to 5. And it doesn't just stop from the 1 to the 5 year. It is a journey because scientists have shown that emotionally your brain does not quite fuse and develop till you're about 26.
However, education is believed learning in the mother tongue, especially at the primary level, may provide the solution to the country's learning crisis while promoting inclusion and improving quality learning.
We usually make the mistake of keeping our children in school to just learn the English language, saying that we don't want other languages to affect their English or their pronunciation. Our children would learn. They would learn the language fluently if you expose them to it.
I think that it's important also that our government makes it compulsory that these languages are taught in our schools because we want to make sure that it doesn't become extinct.
To improve learning outcomes in Nigeria and ensure children gain foundational skills, experts believe there is need for collective leadership working together at all levels in schools, government and communities to drive foundational learning. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The news continues in East Africa, where hundreds of hospitals' doctors joined the demonstration in the streets of Kenya capital Nairobi on Tuesday as a nationwide strike by medics neared its 4th week. About a dozen route police and pickup trucks were out to monitor the protest, which was not authorized by the authorities. Members of the 7,000-strong Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union have been on strike since March 13th to demand better pay and working conditions, disrupting healthcare at the country's 57 public hospitals. Wearing white lab coats and blowing horns and whistles, the doctors chanted "Solidarity Forever" as they marched to the Health Ministry, where they blocked the entrance gates. At least 38 persons, including children, have lost their lives after their migrant boat capsized in a tragic incident off the coast of Djibouti. The International Organization for Migration disclosed in a report that at least 6 others are missing and presumed dead, while 22 survivors are receiving treatment or assistance from the body and local officials. This latest incident adds to a harrowing toll of nearly 1,000 lives lost or unaccounted for since 2014 along the perilous eastern route. Originating from Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, migrants brave this treacherous path through Yemen, aiming for other nations in the Arab region. Despite its dangers, the eastern route continues to witness a surge in migrant traffic driven by aspirations for improved livelihoods. You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. In the wake of Central Bank of Nigeria's recapitalization directive for banks, analysts and investors are carefully evaluating its potential impact. Our correspondent, Perpetua Fasomi Peter, has more.
Announcing a new minimum capital requirement for banks in the country, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, underscored the need to strengthen the banking sector and support the nation's economic growth towards a $1 trillion target. Analysts believe this is critical given the depreciation of the naira, which has significantly affected the capital base of banks in recent years.
They're trying to achieve a $1 trillion economy. A $1 trillion economy, to be able to achieve that, your banks need to actually sit tight, to be able to give that credit to the system that would help achieve that $1 trillion economy.
Although many analysts applaud CBN's preference for a tiered capital requirement system, bankers and many industry watchers criticize the exclusion of retained earnings from bank share capital calculation.
It's just clear that the CBN wants to have the banks inject fresh capital into their business.
On the CBN side, it's kind of justified to say, let's make sure that the capital that is being raised is both from the share capital and the share premium. Banks in Nigeria cannot compete with banks in South Africa.
While some analysts expect shareholders to favor bank stocks over other stocks, Tier 1 banking stocks have witnessed significant selling pressure in recent times as investors digest the directive.
The recapitalization exercise also provides another means for investors that are interested in coming into the banking sector to also fulfill their interests. We're likely going to see companies do rights issues. We're likely going to see mergers and acquisitions happen within the industry within this period. This would give the banks more room to sweat more assets. When the capital base increases, means what the assets you can use to get more returns for your shareholders also increases. So this definitely will trickle down to shareholders in that aspect.
Nigerian banks' recapitalization has been largely welcomed by industry experts, especially the CBN's tiered approach, which is a departure from the 25 billion naira capital base set in 2005. While concerns about money laundering and exclusion of retained earnings have been raised, many seem to be optimistic, trusting in the CBN's ability to navigate these complexities. In Lagos, for News Central, Perpetua Fasomi Peter.
And now to sports stories. After a keenly contested first-leg encounter last Friday at the MKO Abiola Stadium, Abuja, in which the Super Falcons prevailed 1-0, the stage is set for another epic clash between the South Africa and the Nigeria national women's football teams. Both teams are locked in a qualification battle for the women's football event at the Paris Olympic Games taking place in few months. Nigeria's High Commissioner to South Africa, Alexander Tokbe-Ajayi, believes the Super Falcons already have both legs in France ahead of the Olympics.
What you to do is that just have it at the back of your mind that you are playing against all odds. But I know you are all to the task. So we want to see you victorious tomorrow, and the entire Nigerian are behind you. Everybody is behind you. The entire Nigerians in South Africa are behind you. we will all come here tomorrow to support you, to give you a very...
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Fire has razed section of Idumota Market, property worth millions destroyed. Hundreds of Kenya doctors have joined protest in support of strike. We also told you that at least 38 have died as migrant boat sank off Djibouti. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.